This is High School Sports Talk, presented by VirginiaPreps.com on ESPN Radio 94.1.
Welcome back to High School Sports Talk, presented by VirginiaPreps.com here on ESPN Radio 94.1. I am Matthew Hatfield. Coach Ed Young is on assignment today, but should be back here with us next week as we turn the calendar from May to June, and looking to be in the state playoff mix when they turn the calendar to June are the Cox Falcons in baseball. Always a competitive program. You think of their success over the years and Beach District titles and winning a state championship, in fact, back in 1996. And the head baseball coach of the Cox Falcons, Matt Ittner, joins us now on ESPN Radio 94.1, fresh off their win 16-2 over Woodside on Friday. Coach, congrats on the victory yesterday. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Matt. Thanks for having me on.
Our pleasure. And 17-4, I believe the record is after yesterday's victory?
Yes, sir.
Well, tell me this. Let's dig into your background a bit. I believe you're a Cox High School graduate, are you not?
Yes, sir. I was a 2008 graduate. I got to play for Coach Conroy here, who I eventually got to take over for. Yeah,
one of the greats there. Now, you were before Chris Taylor?
So Chris was a 2009 graduate. We played together for 3 years here in the program. So he's a pretty close friend of mine, and he's always great to the program and awesome to have around.
Awesome. So you guys were teammates. And are you surprised at all the success he's had in the big leagues with the LA Dodgers?
Not one bit. I mean, Chris is, ever since we were playing together when we were youngsters, I mean, he's just continued to get better. I think that's the one thing about Chris. He's probably the most consistent human being I've ever been around, consistent baseball player I've ever been around. He is always looking to get better. He is one of the most coachable guys I've ever been around, but also one of the fiercest competitors. And when you put those two things together, you got a pretty special player.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, before you came back to Cox to be the head coach, you coached at Salem High School?
Yes, sir. I was there for 3 seasons. Great experience, great school, great baseball program. Got to take over for Coach Zell, who's now at Ocean Lakes. So it was a great time there, and they're one of the best teams in the area this year. They play tonight, I believe, at 7 at War Memorial. So they got a great squad this year.
They certainly do, and I followed 2 greats with Pete Zell there, and then Bill Conroy, who we'll touch on in a second, at Cox High School, where you played. Matt Ittner, our guest here on ESPN Radio 94.1's High School Sports Talk, presented by VirginiaPreps.com, as we chat with him after last night's win over Woodside and preview their matchup with First Colonial coming up in the semifinals. So this is year 2 for you at the helm?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tell us about your college days after you were done as a 3-year varsity letterman for the baseball team there at Cox with the Falcons. Where'd you go on to college?
I got to play 2 years for actually Coach Wilson at College of the Albemarle. So that was a great experience as a junior college. Got to play a lot of baseball, learned a lot. Got to obviously play for one of the most successful coaches that's come out of this area. And then I finished my last 2 years at Virginia Wesleyan for Coach Booth. So been extremely blessed with the guys that I've been around, and I think that's the reason why I decided to go down this path of being able to play for a Coach Conroy and a Coach Wilson and a Coach Booth. All 3 of those guys had a tremendous impact on me as a young man, and it's kind of funneled me into this profession, and just extremely grateful for the opportunities I had with all 3 of them.
Well, some wonderful influences there. What you mentioned with Nick Booth at Virginia Wesleyan, the great Norby Wilson, and Coach Conroy, Bill Conroy there at Cox. How are those guys? How are they similar and different in your eyes? And how is your coaching strategy, philosophies? Are they pretty much modeled after those men?
You know, each of those guys are unique. There's definitely things that they do the same. There's some things that they do differently. I just tried to pull pieces from every single one of them and try to apply them. They've had, like I said, they've had a huge influence on my coaching philosophy. There's things that, you know, as a coach, you're always evolving. You know, you always have to be learning. There's things that you sometimes will maybe get away from that those guys did, but you'll find yourself circling back and maybe doing some of those same things, you know, a year or 2 later. So they're huge mentors of mine. They continually support me, and so I couldn't be in a better position with the baseball men that have surrounded me and helped me, you know, in my coaching career. I mean, they're second to none, all 3 of those individuals.
We all know how good this baseball area is, especially in the 757 when you talk about the Beach District and this Region 6A. Last year, First Colonial was the region champ. You guys, and to face Western Branch right off the bat in the first round, which is no picnic, fell to them 5-2. Coming into this year, how much did that fuel the guys, and what's been different for this squad from last year to this year? Just been overall experience and gaining knowledge of your system?
Yeah, that's interesting. It's actually 1 year from today that we got knocked out. And I think the biggest difference with this group is that they went to work the next day. They did not like the taste they had in their mouth a year from today, and they were willing to do things a little bit differently. We have tremendous leadership at the top, but we have tremendous leadership throughout the program. It's a great group of guys. They are very intentional about being a team. They hold each other accountable. They make sure that they spend time outside the baseball field to build those relationships with one another. And their work ethic is tremendous. They're not satisfied with what we put on the practice plan. They know that after that is where they're truly going to bridge that gap to be a champion. So that's just kudos to our older guys. That's kudos to, all the guys that are on this roster. They push one another. But also they're very intentional about being a team, and they care about one another as well. So when you have that, then you're kind of putting yourself in a position where you could have a special group. And there's no doubt I think we have that.
And we'll touch on your key performers in a moment here, as well as the matchup with First Colonial. We're chatting with Matt Ittner, the second-year head baseball coach of the Frank W. Cox Falcons in Virginia Beach, his alma mater, here on High School Sports Talk, presented by VirginiaPreps.com on ESPN Radio 94.1. Matt doing a fine job following up the great Bill Conroy after he retired a couple years ago following his 17-season tenure there. And, Coach, you know how important it is for seeding. You were a 7 last year playing Western Branch 2. This year you're a 2 seed, beating the 7 Woodside 16-2, and you got off to a great start this year. I believe you started out the season, if memory serves me right, like 8-0, 9-0, something of that nature. But how big was that to know, all right, we're going to get a better seeding and hopefully, potentially, an easier, though not an easy draw?
Yeah, I think that goes into play of just kind of having the big picture in mind, from game one. You understand every game's going to count towards your regional seeding, and, we started this process back, obviously when it comes to our games, we started it the second week of March, and you have to be ready to go, and you understand that everything that you do is going to put you in a position, try to put yourself in the best position to have success come this time of year. And we've just stayed dialed in and we've stayed focused. And, we've had some times where we lost 2 in a row down in South Carolina, our last 2 when we went to Charleston for a spring break tournament. And I think it was one of the best things that could have happened for our ball club because it challenged us. It challenged us that it wasn't going to be easy and that there are going to be setbacks and there's going to be adversity. But ultimately how you respond to it is ultimately how you're going to be judged. And, this group, again, continued to we didn't hang our heads. We held each other accountable, and we made some adjustments, and we fought our way through a really tough back half of the schedule that we had in the Beach District with having series against First Colonial, Ocean Lakes, and Kellam to end the year. And, those are all 3. As you saw yesterday, all 3 of those ball clubs made it to the region semifinals. So we've been tested, and, we've responded well, and that's probably been the biggest thing I've been happy with our ball club.
Yeah, great day for the Beach District. 4-0 in Region 6A. A couple of Beach teams in Princess Anne and Salem trying to punch their ticket to the semifinals in 5A today. And, Coach, let's go over some of those key performers for you, beginning with the seniors who have either committed or should get an opportunity to play somewhere at the next level.
Yeah, we have Cam Wallace, who is committed to play at Christopher Newport, which, we all know the storied program over there, one of the best Division III programs in the country. And, Cam is – he's flat out a leader. He is the guy that he's one of the first ones there and the last ones to leave. He is always making sure that everybody is on the same page, and that's the one thing we talk about in as our seniors is you have a responsibility to make sure that you are prepared when you come to the ballpark, but as a senior as well, you have to be sure that everybody else is prepared. And, that is a tough thing to put on a 17, 18-year-old kid. These guys have academics, they have extracurriculars, but I think that's kind of what separated us this year is just having a very mature senior group. We also have South Trimble in that mix that he's committed to go play at George Mason, and he's our shortstop, and he's the same as Cam. He's one of the first ones there, last ones to leave. And, he's just – those guys are willing to do anything, the littlest job to the biggest job, whether it's get the game-winning hit or to pick up that rake that somebody left out. There's no job that's too big. There's no job that's too little. We also have Elias Dills, who's a two-sport guy for us, football, baseball, and he's the ultimate competitor. Over 4.0 GPA, all-state orchestra. We call him the Renaissance Man because he can compete. He competes with the best of them on the football field and on the baseball diamond. He's 6-1 for us this year on the mound. He also catches. Just a great kid. Super smart, but he also, like I said, he's the Renaissance Man for us. And two other senior pitchers, Corey Ronka and Eric Mason, have gotten some big outs for us and put together some good outings when we've been in some jams to get us out. So those five dudes have done a tremendous job. And there's one more, and I definitely want to give him a plug. His name's Spencer Lambert. He's been in the program for 4 years. He's a senior. And he transitioned to what we call our baseball operations role this year. And I tell you what, he's one of the most it's probably one of the most important positions on our team, from just helping with practice plans to running charts to running numbers for us. He's our tech guy. He handles all of our baseball technology stuff. And, he deserves a lot of credit. And these guys, the respect they have for that individual is tremendous. So those six guys have really set the standard this year and have laid a tremendous foundation, I think, for years to come.
Couple more minutes here with Matt Ittner, the head baseball coach of the Cox Falcons, our guest here on High School Sports Talk, presented by VirginiaPreps.com on ESPN Radio 94.1 before their matchup in the regional semifinals against Virginia Beach rival First Colonial. Some great baseball on tap for the region. 6A baseball semis. Go out there and check it out. As you have 4 beach schools all advancing. 2 will go to the state tournament. The 8 seed Kellam playing the 5th seed Ocean Lakes, and the number 3 seed First Colonial playing the number 2 seed Cox. And Coach, you mentioned about Cam Wallace, who's committed to CNU, and South Trimble committed to George Mason, your shortstop. Eli Dills, some multi-sport athletes I'm hearing with football, basketball, baseball. And I know a lot of coaches get concerned about that, but I'd imagine given the success of all the athletic programs there at Cox High School, it's got to be a good thing for you guys over there.
It is. I mean, the coaching pedigree that we have in this building is tremendous. We share athletes. The stuff that they're able to learn in other athletic environments is only going to enhance our environment on the baseball field. So I think it just comes down to communication. As coaches, we just make sure that we communicate. South plays for Coach Wolf, which they've had a tremendous last 2 seasons. And, I think that it all comes down to getting our guys in competitive environments. And both Eli and South have both played in competitive environments. Cam Wallace he was on the basketball program for 2 years, and he was in the football program for 3 years as well. So, he had a leg injury last year and decided to focus on baseball. So we totally support one another in this building. That's something that we pride ourselves on, and I think it ultimately helps all of our athletic programs when we have guys playing multiple sports.
There's no surprise when you walk by the trophy case at Cox High School, as I have. You see a lot of hardware there for multiple sports, winter, fall, and spring sports. And, Coach, tell me about this First Colonial matchup. If I read it right, you split with FC. You beat them 10-5, lost to them 1-0. Do you draw back on those 2 games from a few weeks ago, or are they pretty much irrelevant at this point in the regional semifinals?
I think you do a little bit of both. I mean, I think the interesting part that you have in this is that you have, one of the most storied rivalries probably on this side of Richmond, I would say, in the Tidewater area between, 2 schools that are 3/4 of a mile away from each other, and you got a state bid on the line. So there's definitely things that we are going to try to look at in those 2 previous games that we want to try to possibly, exploit or get better at that we were exploited on. But once 7 o'clock comes on Tuesday, we got to cut the guys loose, and they got to go out there and they got to play. So we're going to prepare to the best of our ability over these next 48 to 72 hours. But once Tuesday night comes, we're going to let them go, and we're going to let them go out there and compete to the best of their ability, and we'll see where the ball drops here, come Tuesday night.
Well, Coach, we wish you all the best. Now, that game's going to be on Tuesday at Grassfield. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock Tuesday at Grassfield High School in Chesapeake. Watch two of the best from the beach square off with the Cox Falcons and the First Colonial Patriots. The winner goes to the state tournament and also will play in the Region 6A championship game against either Ocean Lakes or Kellam. Well, Coach, congrats on a great year so far. We wish you all the best. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk again soon, all right?
Thanks, Matt. I really appreciate it.
You got it. Matt Ittner, our guest here, the head baseball coach of the Cox Falcons, with us on High School Sports Talk, presented by VirginiaPreps.com. We come back, we'll hear from Doree McCain, head football coach of the Maury Commodores, about C.J. Beasley's commitment and more. It's your Sports Connection, Pro College High School. We got it all on ESPN Radio 94.1.